What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Coachable Podcast. We are in studio with my dear friend, Orlando Zuniga, who's making his second appearance on this show. If you don't know and haven't watched our original episode, make sure you go check it out. We talked a lot about power and how you can source and find your internal personal power. Tonight, we might be talking about some power dynamics in relationships.
Yes,
We're
we
going to
are.
get more into this
Yeah.
dating relationship conversation that we've been having the last couple weeks because Orlando is a well-versed marriage and family therapist. He's been working with couples for the last 13 years, and he has seen a lot when it comes to
Yeah.
the ins and outs of relationship dynamics and how we can foster and cultivate healthy love in our lives. So I'm excited to have him on the show. I know we're going to learn a couple things, so make sure you get out a piece of pen, a piece of paper, a piece of pen, a pen, and a piece of paper. Take notes, because you're definitely going to want to tune in for this conversation. So welcome to the show, my friend. Welcome
Thank you.
back.
It's good to be back. And
Yeah.
for a new topic.
New
and
topic.
It's interrelated to power either way, because one of the major things that comes up in relational dynamics is power struggles. And that's often linked to communication issues.
Yep.
And that's a pretty big topic.
Yeah, I wanted to
Yeah.
ask, from your over a decade of experience in this field, what are the primary things that reasons couples come to work with you? Do you see the certain patterns over and over again? And if so,
Yeah.
what are those things?
Absolutely. So oftentimes it seems to be a trend where female partners, when I'm working with heterosexual couples, female partners tend to pick a male therapist that because the female partner feels like the male partner might feel more comfortable if there was another male in the room. So that way the male doesn't feel cornered by two females in a professional setting.
Sure.
And so oftentimes the issue is communication issues. And it just depends on what kind of clients you're working with. Predominantly, as of right now, I've been working with more high-performing, like entrepreneurial type couples or high-achieving couples. They can be in corporate structures or things like that. But there are issues in the relational dynamics that they have. They're not communicating. And oftentimes that communication is someone's feeling alone in the relationship or they're feeling disconnected. So oftentimes I see that quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I know for me, I've had various relationships over the course of my life. What is your relationship history? I'm curious to know. And as knowing what you know as a therapist, I'm sure just like myself and everyone listening, like we learn so much in relationships and we
do.
learn things that we take into the next relationship. And yeah, I'm curious like what your relationship history is.
Sure. So I love to date. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
And I have been doing a lot of work on myself throughout that time about really getting clear about what is it that I'm willing to commit to. And I say that because of my history with observing my own parents and observing my own family members and what they've committed to, and them not having the proper tools to really stay in those commitments or to really be healthy in those commitments. Oftentimes I see a lot of fighting and arguing. And so for me, I've done a lot of work, and I still am doing that work, to feel safe in a relationship, to really understand what is it that's going on internally for me when I'm in a dynamic with a relationship. Recently, I took a break from dating or being in a relationship for about 5 years, long time. And my therapist has been pushing me, start dating. And I'm like, I'm fine. Like, I'm just going to meet, these different girls and these different people. And like, I think it'll be fun if like it just happens organically.
Yeah.
And so I also work with psychedelic medicine. And that has really helped me quite a bit to overcome any fears about getting wounded or getting hurt or any dynamics that have to do with my own identity, with my worthiness in being in a relationship.
Yeah.
So my history with relationships is my own relationship with myself, ultimately. Ultimately, it's what am I offering to the partner? What is it exactly that I'm offering? Who am I?
Yeah.
And that journey has been deep, and it has been painful, and it has been tough. And it's been very rewarding, though, especially as of recent, because as of recent, I'm learning a different version of myself. So my relationship history is I tend to go for the really exciting girls that are artists. They're out there somehow. They're kind of shiny in some way. My therapist calls it entertaining.
Mhm.
And for me, the reason for that is I'm very serious. My work is pretty serious. Everything I do can be really serious. And
Mhm.
so that tends to be a break from my day-to-day and my normal. And for me, getting back into dating is making it fun, but also what is commitment for me now?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so great to have
Yeah.
you on with your perspective as a clinician and as somebody who works with psychedelic medicine. I mean, those are two different sides of therapeutic work, but then your own just personal life and
hmm
background and your experiential learning that you've had along the
Yeah.
way as just a man
Yeah.
living as a heterosexual man
I've
in 2025 dating as well.
And I've tried so many things to be like, okay, am I polyamorous? Do I
Mhm.
want to try multiple relationships at once? Maybe that's it. And having moved across the world quite a few times, there's different cultures within that where I was in the Bay Area and that was normal there. And
Sure.
I'd never considered that. And I was like, maybe I should try that.
Yeah.
That might be something I'm open to. Or maybe I should try like somebody who's not fun and artistry
Mhm.
and somebody who's a lot more serious and
Mhm.
more like grounded and that kind of was boring. You know?
Yeah.
But I'm trying and I'm taking risks. And
Yeah.
I think that's what I've come down to is it's important to take risks.
Yeah.
Even if you're already in a marriage, even if you're already in a committed relationship with somebody, it's taking the risk to say the thing that you feel will maybe ruin the relationship.
Yeah.
But you're doing it out of the foundation of authenticity, out of transparency. And those two principles are extremely important in any relationship, just being open.
I've said this so many times on the show, and I know I've said it in the last two episodes because it's so relevant for me right now. And it's
Mhm.
been something I have deepened and stepped into so much more over the last couple years, which is the importance of truth. As like truth and courage are two of my highest values. Like, and if I can't speak my truth or
Mm.
live my truth in a relationship with anybody, whether it's friends or
Yes.
otherwise, then it's not the right relationship for me. And I have been in so many relationships in the past where I felt like I was walking on eggshells,
Yeah.
right? And I couldn't fully be honest because of the fear of the relationship ending,
Mhm.
or I was so worried about what my partner thought, so I didn't want to hurt their feelings, so I would
Right.
withhold certain information. Do you see that in your practice? And also, like, what do you stand by? Like, we should be 100% honest with our partners about
Yes.
everything all the time, or is there like any wiggle room for withholding?
That's a phenomenal question, and I really would like to side on the error or on the in the space of being completely transparent because people are energetically sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
People, especially women, people will feel
I can pick up on it.
yes. Well, I know you do,
Yeah.
but no, that's been my experience with most women is whatever you're withholding. Your body is communicating that in some way, and your partner could potentially already have a sense of that, but it hasn't been confirmed by verbal communication.
Mm-hmm.
There's nonverbal communication, and there's just energetic communication. It can come up in your dreams. That's a
Mm-hmm.
real thing.
Mm-hmm.
It can be just an intuitive hit that comes up. So
Yeah.
if that starts happening, there's going to be a buildup that happens where that partner's going to want to investigate that and they're going to already build that to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so the minute they discover that they were right and that wasn't communicated, trust issues start to happen.
Totally.
And once you start losing trust, you start losing the relationship. It's the beginning. It's
Mm-hmm.
very difficult to repair trust and regain it because once it starts going out, to repair it and regain it is a lot harder and a lot more work.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree. So this question around um, trust, like for example, there's
Yeah.
somebody that I know who, um, maybe she's wanting to feel supported by her
hmm
partner, and she's made some big life decisions. Maybe she chose to follow a career path that maybe took her to a new city. So now they're doing long distance, for example.
Okay.
But she wanted to really honor her truth and pursue her thing. And her partner's saying they're very supportive, but she can feel that they're
Ah,
not.
yeah.
Right? That's an example of one of those times where she's, been thinking, well, he's telling me he's supportive, but I'm getting the sense that he's not.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's something within the relationship dynamic that is blocking this connection. And she's
Yes.
like, I don't know if it's me projecting
Which could be.
or if
Yeah.
that's actually
Right.
what's going on. How do we know? Because that's where, especially people who are doing work, have some self-awareness, can get caught up in their heads of like, is this my thing or is this actually happening within
Right.
my relationship? Do you have any like tips on that? Because that
Yeah.
can be kind of a merry-go-round in your mind when you're
Yeah.
trying to figure that out.
Absolutely. It's a common issue in therapy and in coaching as well, where it's important to be completely transparent about it. So meaning it's complex,
Yeah.
and the complexity of it is I want to be supportive, but I feel this way about it.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason why somebody would withhold that they're not supportive is they don't want to see themselves as not being a loving, supportive partner,
Mm-hmm.
but yet they're denying their own experience. And that's a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
When you deny your own experience, you're a part of the relationship and the relationship will feel that. You're
Mm-hmm.
denying yourself. And if you're denying yourself, what tends to happen is resentment.
Yeah.
And once resentment starts creeping into the relationship, that person who's resenting, it starts creating distance in the relational dynamic, and it's going to be felt in the couple. It's going to be felt in the partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And anger comes in, and projection and blaming, and it just starts to erode the quality of the connection.
I mean, it's like this. I want to get more into trust because so many people have struggled in the past or are currently struggling with trust issues.
Yeah.
So if you've been hurt, betrayed in the past by people, you've been cheated on, someone's lied to you, and you've got trust issues, do you think you have to resolve those before you can enter into a relationship? Like, is it like I need to heal myself before I can be in a relationship? That like saying that people say you need to heal yourself first, or is like none of us are ever fully healed, so
Right.
I have to jump into a relationship before, and
Right.
maybe I bring some baggage with me. Where do we fall in that? Do we wait or do we actually pursue connection, even if we're struggling with certain wounds?
These are some great questions.
Yeah, let's like unpack it together.
I love it. I love it. Well, it depends. Okay, so it's case by case, but it depends. Oftentimes, it would be wise if you just broke up with somebody due to an infidelity or trust issues, it's probably not a good idea to jump immediately right back into dating.
Fair.
It's probably healthier to do some self-reflection and to do some inner work momentarily. The time frame for that is case by case. I can't say the timeline for that. It's definitely not days, right? It's definitely not days. And the reason for that is there's a lesson in there and what's going on in there. Now, the timing of that is dependent on the individual. And so what we're really wanting to look at for that is what have you learned? You know, let's look at accountability. What was your role in that as the person that was in that? Were there any flags, red flags, yellow flags, whatever, available that maybe we missed? And what was the reason we missed them, right? Were we being overly... were we in an illusion, maybe?
Falling in love with potential.
Falling in love with potential. That happens quite a bit. And overly forgiving, not valuing yourself, not respecting yourself. And if that's what's happening, then there's work there to be done around that.
Totally.
Around boundaries, around protecting self, around maybe dating narcissists. That's a possibility too. So without labeling individuals, just understanding the dynamics that were in that relationship. Once we have a sense of that, there could be a hesitation in getting right back into a relationship, but it actually would be really helpful to get back into a relationship to see what is coming up. Can you open up again? Can you trust? Is it okay? Is it safe to do that? So it just depends on that individual and their willingness to open up again, because it's going to be a little bit more challenging to open up right away.
Yeah. I know friends of mine who've been in relationships. I've been in relationships where there is something's off. I don't fully trust you. You know, there's either I've found out that you've lied to me about something, or you've given me a half truth and then details come out later, you know, and then that trust starts to erode. You said earlier, you know, that's a slippery slope. That's when the relationship starts to break down. what's needed in order to repair when those types of things do happen? And how do you know when you're in a dynamic where we're not going to come back from this, right? And I just
Mhm.
need to realize that even though I love this person and I
Yes.
want it to be like to work out, if I'm the one that's not trusting or my partner doesn't trust me, like when is it time to call it quits?
Definitely when there's abuse, any
Mhm.
kind, physical, emotional, mental, definitely that's some time to take
For sure.
apart, some space, right? It's deeper than that for most people. There's couples who've been married for multiple years, they have
Mhm.
children, and it could be pretty difficult to leave a relationship like that because you've built a life together. Maybe you built a business, maybe you've built a lot more than that. Definitely lots of memories.
Yeah, a lot of people are
Yeah.
like, "I'm so invested, and I've
Right.
spent so much time with this person."
Yeah. That's honestly, that could be the most difficult thing for somebody, and it doesn't have to be the reason why someone stays in something like that, because oftentimes it 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 continues to deeply wound that person to actually have a healthy relationship with somebody else if that's the route they want to take. Now,
Mhm.
you can do some work around that. Some relationships are um,
Repairable.
repairable. Probably not the physically abusive ones;
For
those are
sure.
very difficult to really repair. But maybe the other ones where both partners are invested, both partners are individually doing some level of work, and that's important, both partners,
Mm.
to have accountability, to really bring in their version of this is my role for both. This is this person's role. This is this person's role. But being able to fully own,
Yeah.
like I'm doing the work. There's
Yeah.
something going on for me.
I mean, yeah, I feel for people who are having challenges in their relationships and don't have any support or have
Yeah.
any neutral third party
Right.
because it's just their it's their own experience and you can talk yourself into and out of anything, man. At least I know I can.
Hmm.
There have been times in my life where I'm like, oh, this is not working for me. And by the end of the day, I'm like, but it's fine. We're going to work it out,
That's great. You're optimistic.
yeah, but I've now kind of gaslit myself into
Hmm.
being back
Right.
into the relationship by the end of the day.
Yeah.
So one of the most, important things in my life is having people who can speak into
Hmm.
my relationship and help me, shine a mirror on my own blind spots because there are
Right.
things that I can't
Right.
see. And even though I consider myself an emotionally intelligent and self aware person, I know I'm not,
Yeah.
fully aware of everything.
Same.
And it's oftentimes the people who are struggling most in relationships who don't have any support too. What do
Yes.
you see is like, what are some of the things that you're seeing come up for some of your clients or some of the themes that you've been helping people through?
Yeah, even just today, I'm working with different couples, and just today, the issues coming in were communication issues, but
Mhm.
it wasn't the words necessarily that were the issues. It was that the partners were shutting down because they were both threatened, but
Mm.
their expression of how they were threatened was very different.
Mm.
And the lack of awareness on that, you might not have the compassion. Both partners might not have the compassion to what's going on,
Mhm.
and they might want to continue engaging, but that's actually not a good time to begin to continue to connect. That's a time to regulate your
Mhm.
nervous system
Mhm.
and then come back so you can hear the other partner.
Mm.
The issue there is when you're triggered, you will start to kind of shut down your ability to be open to receiving whatever information is being sent.
Mhm.
And information here is not just words, it's nonverbal cues from your body, it's even the person's energy, it's anything. You just
Mhm.
completely wall off and shut down. I'll have one partner that will be very loud, very emotional, like physically expressive, and that might shut down the other partner, and the other partner might be like, "Oh, I just left. You just can't tell because my body's still here, but I'm actually gone.
Mhm.
I'm not even present anymore."
Yeah.
And then the partner feels that vacancy, they feel that withdrawal, and the issue there is, "Well, you're not listening to me." Well, yeah, they're not listening because it's not safe to listen anymore.
Mhm.
They had to support themselves and feel safe. They've just dissociated.
Mhm.
They've just zoned out or checked out
Yeah.
at that point.
I mean, I think it's so helpful when you can learn first learn what your own coping strategies are. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And learning like when you get overwhelmed and
Right.
when you get dysregulated and when you feel attacked or threatened or you feel the need to get defensive, what are your go-to strategies to
Yes.
protect
I
yourself?
love this.
What are the ones, so for people at home who don't know,
Hmm.
because obviously it's helpful to know your own, and then it's also helpful to know what your partners are
Yeah.
so that you can be aware when this
Hmm.
is happening and going down in real time. You're like, okay, he's not even here anymore. She's not even here anymore.
Yeah.
What should we be looking out for as some of those things? Is it like fight or flight? Is it
Yes.
what? Yeah, tell me what that looks like.
So definitely fight, flight, freeze,
Mm-hmm.
or fawn
Mm-hmm.
response, any of that. And what that might look like is you're not listening to me, or it might be fighting, which is your tone is elevated, your eyes are bigger,
Mm-hmm.
your body language is more aggressive. So all of that's information that says, I don't feel safe. I need a timeout. But if one of the partners says, don't they chase after you and you're out wanting space, that's probably not a good idea because they're just going to run some more.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to be more difficult to feel like
Mm-hmm.
you're not giving me space and the other person's more anxious. So now we're talking about attachment styles.
Yep, because
we should have a bell. Ding, ding, ding. Attachment styles.
Avoidant, anxious.
Right, exactly. Well, we have one partner that wants to run,
Mm-hmm.
more avoidance style, avoiding the discomfort of whatever they're feeling in their nervous system. And then we have the partner that is very anxious and wants to resolve it right away. And
We have to talk about it
we
right
have to talk
now.
about it right now, right? And the idea there is when you have these two different styles, they don't work together. So we have to respect our individual styles and learn about them. What does this mean? It's almost like studying another alien. Like, how do I connect with this person that's different from me?
Mm-hmm.
What can we do? Breathing is a really powerful exercise. It's my favorite. You do breath work, so you understand the power of breath.
Sure.
That's one of my favorite ones because our nervous system is dysregulated, and part of the work there is regulating the nervous system, and breathing is one of them.
Yeah.
Getting yourself back online.
Yeah. I mean, what I've learned from doing nervous system regulation work and polyvagal theory is that like there's part of your brain in your brainstem that is working 24 hours a day, like all the time.
Yes.
And it's looking for safety, danger, or
Mhm.
life-threatening danger.
Yes.
And it can be your tone that is now causing me to think there's
Yeah.
danger. It can be the way you look. It can be your posture. It can be something you said. It can be the text that you didn't send in a certain amount of hours. And all of a sudden, it's like danger, danger.
Yes.
And you
Yes.
go into one of those aroused states or stress responses. And for me, I've had to learn like what are the sensations in my body? How do I know when I am
Yes.
leaving my center of feeling regulated and safe,
Right.
and now all of a sudden I'm activated?
Yeah.
And what does that look like for me? I know we just talked a little bit about anxious and avoidant attachment styles. I know a lot of people who listen to this are aware of attachment styles. There are 4 of them. Can you give a little bit of a overview of what each of them are?
Sure.
And then I have a follow-up question about the types of dynamics that we might find ourselves
Sure.
in if we're dating certain types of people
Sure.
and certain attachment styles.
As you mentioned, your viewers and most people might know what they are. It's a pretty common. And if you don't, there's a great book that I really like called Attached by Amir Levine.
Yeah.
That's and there's other material out there. So there are 4, as you mentioned, definitely. There's anxious style of attaching. And anxious style is a fear-based style where you're afraid your partner will abandon you or leave you. There's avoidance style, which is I'm uncomfortable and I need to leave, or I need to, whether it's physically or mentally leave. And then there's secure attachment style, which is ideal, which is I feel safe. This isn't personal. We're going to fix this. This will be resolved. I feel confident. I'm going to stay. So pretty much it's the one that feels no anxiety in that moment and isn't going to run. They're grounded. And that's an ideal partner for pretty much all of them. Yeah. And it's a well of truth.
Yeah.
And then there's the disorganized style, which is a combination of anxiousness and avoidant style. And that one is, it can be anxiety It can be both anxiety and avoiding.
Right.
And that one is complex because you've got a lot going on in there that you're having to manage. And those individuals, what I've noticed, they might have a little PTSD potentially, undiagnosed.
Got it.
And in that is just psychological trauma that says, I'm not safe with people. They might have a little social anxiety. They might call themselves introverts, but they might just be afraid of being seen or being or feeling safe with another in that regard.
Yeah. I want you to debunk a myth, I guess, or like, is there any truth to men being more avoidant than women?
I wish I had like actual research to be completely valid. In my clinical experience, yes, absolutely.
So based on what you've seen with clients over time.
Yeah, I can almost expect that. In fact, one of the things that I tell the men that I work with when I'm in a group dynamic is things are going to come up. Please, before you decide this group is not for you, I respect if that's your choice. Just know that it's a very common symptom when you just want to not come back. It's, and that's why men's groups can be pretty difficult because you'll start off with like 15 men in a support group or just a brotherhood of some kind. And then you're down to half. Yeah. Because someone gets triggered, someone gets angry, and they don't want to look at that anger.
Fuck this. I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. And I work with, I mentioned entrepreneurial, high-achieving couples. And so within that, I also work with men who are in leadership roles where they have a lot of power, they have a lot of say, they have the control. And if something bothers them, they can get rid of people. They can fire people. They can yell at people. It's not healthy, but they don't have to deal with it because they're in charge to some degree. But when they're coming into a dynamic where they're saying, hey, professional person, I want your help, we're going to reflect back some things that are uncomfortable they've been avoiding for a long time. And if the therapist hasn't developed the rapport or the relationship enough, they're going to run. They're runners. Yeah. They're going to leave. They're going to blame the therapist or the coach. And they're going to have this self-fulfilling prophecy that says, see, it doesn't work. And it doesn't work because nobody gets me. Or they'll make an excuse here. But unfortunately, yes. Yeah. It's common.
Well, it's interesting because that's been my experience as well in my personal
Has it?
Life.
All right.
Yeah, which is why I kind of had a reason for asking. But I'm asking on behalf of a lot of women because recently I put out a piece of content on TikTok and Instagram, and it went mega viral. And I was talking about one of the reasons why I'm single and looking for a conscious man who's emotionally safe and doing this work. I think men get a bad rep.
We do.
And I don't.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I know that they do. And I also work with a lot of men. I know there are men doing this work. And obviously you're one of them. There's so many in our friend group. And yet hundreds of thousands of women have responded and been like, this is a frustration.
Okay.
And there's a sense in the community that women are more evolved or are the ones that are predominantly bringing their men to therapy, asking to do certain things. Yeah. This isn't about bashing men by any means, because I do want to recognize there are a lot of men who are stepping up. But where do you see the discrepancy, and what is needed from men right now more than ever when it comes to their part in creating healthy relational dynamics?
A sacred, safe space. Honestly, sacred, safe space. That's it.
What does that mean?
What does that mean is a space for men to be vulnerable, a space for men to open up about shame, potentially. That's one of the biggest issues plaguing men. And it's not just impacting men. It's whatever they're connected to, their families, their spouses, their friends, their colleagues, like everything they're connected to. Women, heterosexual women that want to be in a relationship with men are begging men to do this work because they want to feel safe in their presence and they want a relationship with men. And other men also want to have friends who are men, but they might not know how. So they're very isolating, which is why groups can be such a powerful experience to normalize the experience of you're not alone. We all experience shame to some degree, but we might not be so open to sharing those vulnerabilities of, I don't like myself, or I don't feel successful enough, or I don't feel man enough, or whatever it might be. And then there's the culture of men, which is very shaming in itself. We've heard the term toxic masculinity thrown out there. Even that word can be shaming of like, oh, I'm toxic. Which means like I'm disposable or something's wrong with me and I shouldn't even try here. So the idea there is like, it's not that men are toxic, it's that men haven't matured enough to a point, but not in a judgmental way. Just more as a matter of fact of, okay, you're a 50-year-old man that is probably developmentally, without judging, maybe in their 20s, maybe in their 30s. And what does that mean? That means that there's work to do. To get to where maybe somebody might have the communication skills. And I have actually pretty good examples on that. My sister was dating somebody who as she started going to therapy, she recognized this partner actually isn't healthy for me. I've been neglecting my own needs, and that started making firm communication choices with her partner. And over time, she started having this bashing with men of like, all men are this, all men are that. And then I'm like, oh, really? All of us, including me? Well, not you. So then there's this idea then that starts to perpetuate. And then I see her sharing that with her circle of girlfriends. And so now they're commiserating and bashing on men. And then that doesn't lend to men feeling safe opening up to groups of women. And I understand it's frustrating for women. It's frustrating for women that they're very open, flexible. They're doing the work. They know how to.
We're now supposed to make you feel safe.
Yeah. And women, honestly, they have an easier time gathering and expressing their emotions. Men have not been conditioned culturally in almost any culture to open up about how they feel.
What I found is that a lot of men don't even know how they feel.
They don't. I have one client.
You ask a man, and how he's feeling, and he'll tell you what he's thinking.
What he's thinking. Yes. Well, here's where I bring in the wheel of emotions to really start teaching, and they kind of feel like, oh, I'm not intelligent or I'm not smart. And it's not to like make them feel like they're not intelligent. It's just that you just don't know the language of the heart yet. And that's work in itself. Like, it's valuable work to do. How do I feel? And how I feel isn't how I think, right? There's like the language of the mind, which we're all in predominantly in Western culture. And then there's the language of the heart. How do I feel? What are my emotions? And especially if you haven't really tuned into that, you might not know how to access that.
Well, and culturally, it's not something that we promote, because in order to get to be promoted in life and to climb the ladder, what's told is that, like, leave your emotions out of it.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be logical. You need to be strategic. You need to be cutthroat at times. You need to get what you need to do done. Like, don't let your heart or your emotions dictate your choices. You could do what needs to be done, you know? And then that's what they go to work and do all day long, and then they show up at home and they're supposed to be these open-hearted, like emotional beings, and there's no switch that just flips like that.
I see that so much. Actually, that's a big problem where men are at work 8-12 hours a day, and then they're expected to transition from being a logical fixer or linear thinker, and then how are you feeling? They're still using the same modality. There's the same thinking style or process, and they haven't been conditioned over time. They don't have the emotional intelligence to understand what is going on inside of me.
Yeah.
And emotions are data. Emotions are information, powerful information, actually. And when you begin to align your thinking with your emotions and with your behaviors, the trifecta, you create your reality through that process, through your thoughts, which then create how you feel. So if I start thinking my wife is going to leave me, the emotion followed by that is not happy. Okay, unless you're like, oh yeah, I don't want to be in a relationship with her, right? But oftentimes
let me do something to make her leave me.
Right. But oftentimes, like, the emotion of My wife is cheating on me or going to leave me. They're probably sad. They're probably angry. And their behaviors next are, I'm going to drink. I'm going to avoid. I'm going to maybe cheat myself, or I'm not happy. So I'm going to do something to change how I feel. So the behavior is followed by that. So when we can understand that whole process and really be in congruency, in alignment, we can create a new reality. Because otherwise, the reality there is just unconscious reality.
Yeah.
So you mentioned conscious men. Being a conscious man is doing the work to understand how are your thoughts impacting your emotions, so that way you can create the behaviors to create the reality that you are co-creating with the collective.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there are a lot of women who desire that from their partner. What can women do to, because a lot of women are just like fed up, honestly. Like, let's just be real. They're like, there are more women who are like, I know amazingly like attractive, successful, like amazing women who would be a catch.
Me too.
And they're like,
yeah,
nah, I'm good. I do not want to date. I don't want to have anything to do with men. And to me, that just speaks to how much wounding there is.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is that like past hurt will always inform future fear. But I mean, culturally, we're at an interesting place.
We are.
Because marriage isn't what it used to be.
No.
People aren't having kids the way they used to.
Right.
Because they're like looking at the state of the world and the state of relationships and they're like, this isn't it. Yeah. So I'd rather just be alone. And there have been times, honestly, where I'm at that place. Like, if the relationship I'm going to be in is not completely like adding and benefiting to my life, then what is the point? Like, I don't need that in my life. And so I used to think that marriage was like what I was after, and it's not that anymore. It's about health for me and health for whatever types of relationships I'm in. And if it's not healthy, then I don't need it. And I think a lot of women, and maybe men too, are coming to that conclusion. But to your point about like earlier about your relationship to yourself, I have learned to give myself a lot of the things that I'm looking for. Now, I can't give myself everything. And so, but I can meet a lot of my own needs.
Yes. I was really good at that.
Yeah.
But not all of them.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts?
I love that we're talking about this. It leads us into the conversation of spiritual partnership, because it's no longer about building the physical life together. Now it's about building yourselves up through the challenges that are present in the relationship, really committing to the work. It's about committing to the relationship with something so powerful beyond the physical here, and being able to build that reality together. Because one of the things that now this isn't backed by any kind of like third dimensional science. This is more spiritual theory. And for that is when men and women get together, they are powerful spiritual beings that when they get together, they can co-create. They can move mountains. They can do a lot of amazing things together. I mean, collectively, just groups of people can do that. We've seen that in society. And so when two people who are very committed to the work and they're refining their process, and as they're getting triggered to not run away, to not be in fear, and to use the tools, they'll find their depthness in those experiences. And if you're avoiding that, then you're no longer evolving spiritually, and then you're stunted. Now, if you're somebody who's very ambitious and wants to really have the most elevated life at a high frequency, you're probably going to want a partner that's going to get you there, because you won't be able to fully take yourself to that level. Not alone, at least.
Right.
Not in my experience.
Right.
I could be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal, is to have a aligned partner that meets you, can meet me mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, right? Because there is something that happens when you connect on that level that is only really accessible in that way.
Right.
And the dating pool has shrunk. You know what I mean? When you're talking about looking for divine union is what you're really talking about. You know, that when I look out into the dating pool of like potential partners, that gets a little bit smaller. You know, so it's a challenge, but I also am of the belief that what's meant for me will find me, and that like I attract what I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Magnetize.
Totally. Yeah. Because, and when I look back in my life, I'm like, I've attracted all of those partners.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. And there's.
Yeah. What about you is attracting that?
Totally.
Right. And when we start to ask that question, it could be rooted in unworthiness.
Yeah.
Of like, I need to rescue someone. I'm comfortable in this. This is the dynamic I grew up with, that I'm familiar with. When we begin to date, a lot of our dating is unconscious dating. It's really these dynamics that we saw in our home that says like, oh, well, this is how my mom and dad were. So this is the model of relating here that I know.
Yeah.
And it's not that easy to just break that model. We've got to experiment. We've got to put ourselves out there. We've got to really roll up our sleeves and try new things and try new people. And is this it? No, that's not it. Is that it? No, that's not it. And through all of those different partnerships and different dating experiences, that could be pretty scary. Then we start really thinking, I don't think this is something that's going to be available for me. We start doubting ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. And then we start slowing ourselves down. And then we almost have this internal dialogue that says, I don't think this is going to happen for me. Let me just not do this anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then the
people get defeated.
People get defeated. And the thing with that is having courage. And honestly, that's probably the number one thing that I want to speak to men about is we get so much communication from society, from our fathers, from our brothers, from whomever, women, that says like men are supposed to be strong, men are supposed to be warriors and courageous. But when we have those examples, it's all external, it's all in the physical. And I want to say, yes, it's that and more than that. So it's not dominating, it's not being violent, it's not being too aggressive, it's going inward. Truly going inward and having the courage to look at what hurts, to look at why it hurts, to understand the pain, to be with the pain, to really see that 5-year-old boy, that 10-year-old boy, whatever, where does that little boy go? He doesn't just disappear. It's inside ourselves. It's asking to be expressed. It's trapped. It's wanting to be seen. It's wanting to be heard. It's wanting to be felt. But the reason it's trapped is we won't allow the witnessing of it. That sacred witnessing that is very possible in a healthy, safe space.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's important.
And the thing I love about courage is courage connects you to your heart.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, it takes courage to run into a burning building, but like to run into your own, like, like there are a lot of people whose lives are burning to the ground. They're burning their shit to the ground and internally things are on fire and they can't call in their courage to go in there and like put the fire out. Yeah. But when you do, and that's like one of the sexiest traits in a man, in any human being, honestly, I'm like, respect. Respect, because I know you have a willingness to do what most people will never do. Yeah. And that's like, that to me tells me a lot about a person. And yeah, I think it does require a lot of courage to do the things that is easier to avoid, and it's easier to run.
It is easy.
It's easier to numb and check out and go on to the next best thing, or just to be toxically positive and just be like, it's all, you know. But
it's all love and light. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Not all of it.
But I do have a question. You know, like, I think this is going to be a challenge for a lot of people.
Bring it.
They have these standards. Right? Let's talk about standards.
Sure.
And they meet somebody and they see maybe a yellow flag, maybe a red flag, and all of a sudden they're like, I got the ick. You know, like, no.
Yeah, they threw them out. Yeah.
When is that too soon? I'm
glad you brought that up. Yeah. We do want to be a little more compassionate for people. Even if you haven't been in a traumatic relationship, the world is really stressful right now. People are not perfect. And if we're really selecting partners in the state of perfection, what the psyche is doing in that moment is saying, I want to protect you, so don't give this person a chance here. Now, if you're picking that up, then go slow. Go slow.
Good advice.
Take your time. Don't be in a rush. Really build that relationship. Congruency.
Yeah.
Do you feel safe? Does your nervous system feel safe over time? Bring it up.
Yeah.
Have transparency. Hey, I noticed this. How do they respond to that? How do they communicate?
Yeah.
Do they own it? Are they defending it? And that's an indicator of, does this person have the tools? Can they go with me where I want to go to feel safe, especially for women? It's not just women, but especially for women, is can the masculine man, do the work to be a safe person, because the monster inside can be really scary for that female partner.
I agree. Go slow. Take it slow, and people will show you and reveal who they are.
Yeah. You'll challenge them. They'll challenge you. And that's the nature of relating.
Totally.
Is repairing too.
Yeah.
Is how do you repair?
Yeah.
That's a really big part of it.
Which I think is a whole topic of its own.
It really is.
Around conflict. I mean, conflict and repair. How do we properly apologize? Because I don't know that I've gotten that many like really good apologies in my life. And I think it's a skill that people are lacking, to take accountability and say, like, what I did, I know hurt you and I know it's wrong. Like, do you have any tips on that? Because I know for a lot of people it can feel like, I don't want to admit when I'm wrong, or I don't want to, if I do, then they'll realize I'm a failure or this, that, and the other. Like, speak to that, because, and what makes a good apology? Because just saying, I'm sorry, is that enough?
No, actually, not at all. Words are not enough. It's connecting with your ability to be accountable for, even if you don't, we all live in a subjective experience, a subjective reality.
Yeah.
Right? Tori has a subjective reality. Orlando has a subjective reality.
Yeah.
And it's not to negate your reality, to confirm mine. It's to validate, like, I don't know what it's like to be you, because I'm not you and I never will be you. So for me, it might be, can I honor that that's just your experience? That wasn't maybe my experience, but it's not about me defending my experience. It's about confirming and validating and saying, you are obviously hurt. I see it in your face right now. And I'm sorry that that's an experience that you're having. And if I was a part of that, let me look at myself a little bit deeper. How can I make adjustments to myself? And it's not to let me take the blame always. It's more about let's take a moment to pause and acknowledge that you're in pain right now, that I care about you so much that I'm willing to be with you in your moment of discomfort.
Yeah.
And then from there, let's attune, right? That's what attunement is. Attunement is time out. If you're not okay, we're not okay. Or if I'm not okay, we're not okay. Can you make space for us to kind of reset and go back to that, right? Yeah. And then from there, let's explore, how can we avoid maybe not going through this? Let's explore, what was my experience? What was your experience? Because again, if you're being invalidated in that moment, you're going to shut down.
And change behavior says a lot.
Well, that's a big one here. That's the last piece of it, to be quite honest, is changing behavior.
Yeah.
Because
you can just say, I'm sorry, and I don't want you to feel that way, but continue to do the same thing over and over again.
That's a big one. That's probably the most important one, is action, right? So it's attunement, it's acknowledgement, it's verbally acknowledging that, taking the accountability. It's, here's what I'm going to do, here's how I'm doing it. So it's doing the work.
Yeah, it's doing the work.
It's doing the work.
So there is a new YouTube video out that on Call Her Daddy. It's one of the most popular
I've heard of this
podcasts that exists. Yeah. And basically this couple from The Bachelor several seasons ago recently went through a very, very public breakup. And it's sent the internet in a tizzy. Like,
Yeah.
people are so up in arms about this.
Sure.
And it's been very, very public. And it was very unexpected. This couple had been together for like 4 years, and they were
Mm-hmm.
expected to get engaged soon. And basically, Rachel Kirkconnell went on the Call Her Daddy podcast after this public breakup. So she and her boyfriend of 4 years, they broke up. And then within a couple hours, he had posted on Instagram telling the whole world that they were breaking up. And while she was on the flight home from Tokyo, she gets off the flight and she realizes that the whole world knows. Well, I watched the episode of her coming on and sharing what happened, because everybody's been like, we want the tea. What happened? Why are y'all not together? And she shared something that I know a lot of people have experienced before, and I want you to speak to this, which is one of the things she said on it is that she would go into a conversation with her partner upset or frustrated with him about something, and basically to share, hey, this is something I'm upset about, and would leave the conversation hoping he wasn't upset with her. So basically, she would bring something to her partner that was upsetting, but then by the end of it, she was apologizing. That because he had like turned it around, and now she felt like she was bothering him, or that she was making something a big deal that she shouldn't have. And I know personally in my experience, this happened to me a lot in a previous relationship,
Okay.
where I would bring up something that was hurtful, or that was, in my opinion, needed to be addressed. And by the end of it, I was like, I'm sorry. Like, honestly, this happened to me with this person this week. Now that I think about it. This
Okay.
is a person that's still sort of in my life, in the outskirts of my life,
Okay.
and says they want to be a part of my life and a friend and wants to stay in touch, but is very inconsistent and always says they want to make plans, but never make plans. And I finally got sick of it, honestly. And it was like, to be honest, like, I feel like this is the dance we do all the time.
Right.
And it doesn't make me feel valued. And you say you want to be close and you want to do this, that, and other, but there's not any of that backing it up. And basically, I'm frustrated about it. And by the end of the conversation, I felt like I was apologizing, because they're like, I can't believe you're saying this about me. Like, of course I care about you. Da 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 da. And now I'm like, I'm sorry that I made this a big deal.
Yeah.
Is that like normal? Is that because I know a lot of people who've experienced that, and some people are saying that is a quality of narcissism. I'm not sure. What's your take?
I love that you're bringing it up for a few different reasons, because there could be simultaneously two things going on, and both are valid and both are true, and it's an incongruency in the relationship. It's a difficult partnership where a lot of work is required from you to feel validated in your experience and not negate your own experience from yourself first and foremost, and also from the partner acknowledging that experience that you're having, and simultaneously what is going on for this person, this friend. What might be going on? And it might not be narcissism. It might be they have ADHD that's undiagnosed and they don't really know what's going on. They feel like they're this person. Their identity is like, I am this person, but the reality of it is they're not that person. They think they're that person. And if they're not doing the work, meaning if they're not in coaching or therapy, then they're not really looking in their blind spots. They're not looking at what's going on.
So would you disagree then to anybody that says people know exactly what they're doing when they're doing it?
No, not necessarily.
Because a lot of people are like, people
No.
know good and well what they're doing.
No, they don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, they don't. Some people do. I don't want to be an absolute in saying everyone doesn't know. No.
Some people are well aware.
Some people are very well aware. And those are the narcissists. Yeah. And there are people that are well aware and they don't recognize that this is not healthy for me to invalidate other people, so I don't have to face the consequences of my own behaviors, of my own actions. That's definitely something.
Yeah.
Very dangerous.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And how do you know the difference when you're in relationship with that person?
Go into a couple dynamic with a professional. They will capture it.
Yeah.
Because they will see the incongruency. I see it. I see it all the time.
This is why it's
Yeah.
important to go to therapy. Everyone.
And let me speak to that because some people they don't like therapy. They don't like coaching. And the reason for that, I totally understand and respect. It's difficult for both partners to connect with one person and saying, we both trust this person. This person is qualified to understand what our dynamic is. And financially, can we afford this?
Sure.
That's another big piece of the puzzle.
Of course.
The time commitment, the getting vulnerable piece, getting uncomfortable, the financial piece, and finding the right person. That's tough. That can be really tough. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, if we aren't able to, for whatever reason, get into those safe spaces, are we just SOL? Oh.
No. I mean, there's so many different avenues, right? There's weekend courses. There's, if you're a part of a church, you're a pastor or your congregation, there's definitely like mediators that are available, books you can read.
Yeah.
Like there are resources, but the idea is like take action.
Yeah.
Don't just be like magically something's going to happen.
Yeah. A lot of people are just hoping and praying the relationship gets better.
I mean, that's a great start, but not much will happen with that.
Honestly,
what will happen with that here, let's be real, from what I've experienced is you'll meet a therapist out. You'll meet a coach out. You'll see the podcast on a YouTube video. You'll find a book. That's a good start, but that's not everything. There's got to be a lot of focused commitment to, I really want a healthy partnership with somebody. I want to feel safe.
Totally. Hope and prayer is not a strategy for changing your life. I don't think. Yes.
It's a part of the strategy.
You can absolutely pray, but like that is not the only thing that is needed.
We need some action. We need like spirit, mind, emotion, action, which is physical.
Hoping that God's just gonna send your partner to knock on your door isn't, what's gonna happen. You gotta get you and put yourself out there.
That would be pretty cool. I have never heard of that.
Exactly, but you have to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
It's not just gonna come find you. You know what I mean? You have to engage and participate in life.
Which is how I met you, because I'm usually pretty exhausted from work, and I was new to Las Vegas. I'm like, I don't want to go out. And I'm like, I'm forcing myself to go out.
Yeah.
And the day I met you, I was like, I'm not going to go to a mutual friend's house because I'm tired. And then I was like, he sent a blanket text message. I don't think I have to go. And then he personally messaged me. I was like, okay, I'm going to go. Yeah. Like, this is an invitation. I need to meet more people. And then through that, I met you and your beautiful community.
Yeah.
Which is like,
So
okay,
glad.
I'm glad I pushed myself.
Totally.
Yeah.
So glad.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts just on dating, relationships, closure, endings, like anything that you think will be relevant for our audience today and all the topics that kind of we explored, or any final thoughts for...
Yes.
out there?
Absolutely. Don't give up. Don't give up. It's part of what we're here to do. Is the nature of our species is to be connected, is to be in community. It's to understand who we are, what's possible for us, and just having the courage to do this work however it may come and to not give up. So have hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you so much, my friend, for
Thank
being
you.
here, sharing,
Thank
as
you.
always.
Yes.
I hope you guys loved this episode. If you did, do me a favor, tag us, maybe take a screenshot and tag us the Coachable Podcast, or share this with a friend who needs to hear it. You never know what might connect the dots for them. And if you really want to go above and beyond, you can always leave us a rating and review on Spotify or Apple. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel where you're going to get content every single week. Just want to say thank you for being here. We'll see you next week on the Coachable Podcast. Bye.